Welcome back to another episode of Ideas Exchange, where big ideas meet bold innovators. Today we have with us Mr. Rajesh Nath, Managing Director of VDMA India, the Indian arm of Europe's largest industrial association, representing over 3,600 members and 262 billion euros in production. Mr. Nath is a true Indo-German connector. He is honored with Germany's highest civilian award, the Cross of the Order of Merit. He is an engineer with a distinction and a proud IIM Kolkata alumnus. Let's dive into the world of manufacturing, collaboration, and interesting industry insights with Mr. Nath. Welcome to Ideas Exchange, Mr. Nath.
Thank you, Siddesh, and thank you for having me on this podcast. A pleasure and honor for me to be on this podcast with you.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. Pleasure is all ours, Mr. Nath. So let's jump right in, right? Could you start by giving us an overview of VDMA and its significance in the global manufacturing landscape, particularly in India?
VDMA actually it's an abbreviation of a German word. So translated into English, it means the German Machinery and Plant Manufacturers Association, Siddesh. VDM is the largest industrial association, not only in Germany, but in whole of Europe. We carry forward quite I think, a rich tradition or heritage also. It's a 133-year-old association. So one of the oldest industrial associations in the world. So VDM is headquartered in Frankfurt, and we have, as you mentioned, we have about 3,600 members, primarily German companies. But since after the pandemic, we've seen, Kshitij, there's a lot of interest of the companies beyond Germany, in Europe also, to be members of VDMA. So now we have around 300 companies which are beyond Germany who are VDMA members. Uh, I think what distinguishes us is that we call ourselves an industrial association,
Right.
in the sense that all our members are connected with manufacturing or with technology. So that makes us quite unique in that sense, since we don't have any service providers or consultants or agents as members. So when we talk about these 3,600 companies, these are all hardcore into engineering and manufacturing sector. When we talk about technology or when we talk about machinery, Germany carries, I think, a very good name, reputation, and especially made in Germany still is highly regarded all over the world. And it is one of the largest, it is in fact, the largest exporting nation when we talk about machinery trade. And at VDMA, the members are divided into various industrial verticals. So we have 36 industrial verticals at
Yeah.
VDMA.
Okay.
And as per the activities, Kshitij, the members would be classified in these industrial verticals. Of course, as VDMA, our important role is for the machinery industry. In fact, we have our colleagues also who work a lot on standardization, on conformity assessment. So, in fact, a lot of inputs for the DIN or Deutsche Industrie Norm, as they call it, have been with inputs from VDMA. Beyond that, I think VDMA's strength lies also in collecting a lot of global data on machinery trade, which is very handy for our members since Germany is primarily an exporting nation. So from this turnover, what you mentioned, 262 billion euros, almost 80% is the export percentage of the VDMA members. So that is why VDMA plays an important role in helping the German industry to go global, as well as opening doors for the members in various countries, because besides our head office in Frankfurt or in Germany, we were perhaps the only industrial association who had a very strong presence in the BRIC countries.
Right.
India was one of the first foreign offices of VDMA. After the success of India office, VDMA started operations in China. And this is very interesting, Sitej, because normally if we look at the German companies, they moved to China first and then came to India, whereas in case of VDMA, the India office was there and then VDMA started an office in China. Then looking at the BRICS, actually we had an office in Moscow also, which due to the present circumstances we have shut down now. And we have an office in Brazil also. We have a strong presence in Brazil also.
Right.
And now we have expanded our offices within Europe, but also in USA, and we have just a month back opened an office in Singapore also. So that is the global presence or the global reach, Satish, of the VDMA offices and the VDMA members.
Thank you. That's very helpful and insightful to understand the whole length and breadth as well as the history and the current innovations that you guys are into. I think it's pretty impressive, like being around for over
Thank
130
you.
years, working with over 3,600 core manufacturers and not just service
Right.
providers that are specifically from machinery manufacturing. So you've picked a very, very important industry, one that thrives on innovation, like today more than ever, right? And
Right.
it's important, like you rightly said, to have a global vessel of knowledge, right? And possibly VDMA is acting as that single vessel, which sort of encapsulates the knowledge which is required to continue to innovate at a level which stays relevant with the market trends, right? And I think
Sure.
it's wonderful. I want to pick on something that you mentioned, which was that VDMA started, unlike some of the other organizations and companies, VDMA first set up its office in India before China, which is different from what generally people do. Is there a story there?
So it's interesting because I think VDMA showed a lot of foresight because when we started our office around 98, you could say, that time the Indian market was not so attractive for the German manufacturers. So the export of German machinery that time to India, Kshitij, was around 500 million Deutschmark because we had the Deutschmark that
Correct.
time. The
Right.
euro had not come into play.
Correct.
And we had about 200, approximately 200 VDMA members who were in India. But I think that is where I think kudos to our management of VDMA that they had this foresight and started the operation in India. And now, Kshitij, from this 500 million Deutschmark, the export of German machinery to India is 4,200 million euros. So you could say if we look at Deutschmark to euro, it would be about 250. So you could
Right.
say you can see the increment that
Right.
has happened over the period of time that
Right.
what we have been able to achieve, as well as the VDMA members, Kshitij, from 200 members almost 25, 26 years back we have now more than 600 VDMA members who are present in India.
Right.
And let me just share my personal experience also, Kshitij.
Absolutely.
When I remember so my journey with VDMA also started 26 years back. So I've
Wow.
been with the organization for 26 almost from the inception of VDMA in India. So I remember, Kshitij, that time when I used to go to our head office, meet our members in Germany, I used to talk about India, and the question was, why do we need to invest in India? And
Right.
now, after quarter of a century, it is no more. Why do we need to invest in India? Those whom I meet, they're very eager to understand where they can invest in India, which would
India.
be the right city to invest in India.
Right.
So there's been a perceptional change in attitude of the German companies towards India. And we are seeing also, so there's a lot of interest of the German companies or European companies to invest in India presently.
I think this is one of those stories where foresight and possibly perseverance at your end, trying to convince people at VDMA that India is a market which is poised for going at a very, very different level from what it was
That's
a
correct.
quarter of a century back. I think the numbers moving from 300 to 600, but more importantly, the sheer amount of investment and
Right.
export that is happening in the Indian market, that's a meteoric shift. I think yeah. So that's really insightful and really interesting to know. On
Right.
that note, Mr. Nath, I'd like to pick your brain on since we're talking about investments in India, right? So VDMA typically invests about, if I'm not wrong, I think about 10 to 12% of your expenditure is in core research and development, right? So how does this
Absolutely.
commitment to innovation influence the manufacturing sector in India?
A very good question, Sitij. And I think this is really what gives German manufacturers this cutting edge technology. Because if you look at the global average, it's about roughly around 3%.
Right.
German companies invest about 8 to 10% on R&D. So there's a lot of focus and there's a lot of development that keeps on happening. And how that is helping is that when we look at India now, when German companies are exporting to India, we are getting machines with the highest standards of safety, highest standards of quality. And that is helping our manufacturers here in India to produce goods in a very safe and secure condition or working condition, also with a very high precision and high quality, which would help them when they are looking to either export these products or for the domestic market. And this is, I think, the biggest or the win-win situation from the German side, and how India is able to also utilize properly these machines with high standards of safety and precision.
And so, since we are talking about safety, precision, quality, right? So, how do you think, Mr. Nath, that of course, one is immediate application of some of these machineries which are exported, right? But more importantly, in what ways do you think VDMA has been able to sort of facilitate how German engineering and technology are being integrated into Indian manufacturing to enhance quality and efficiency and safety, right? We've been able to build this capability over a period of time, right? Like German engineering has been known to have certain standards of quality for the longest time. Now people are trying to wake up to the reality that, okay, Indian manufacturing or quality of Indian products is also good, right? And we are getting there. It's still a journey. I think we still have some ground to cover. But how do you think VDMA has been able to facilitate some of that technology and focus on quality and efficiency in the Indian manufacturing landscape?
So, Satish, as our Honorable Prime Minister said, local for global. So, I think the aim of the government with the various schemes like Make in India or the Production Linked Incentive Scheme, PLIs schemes, is that we get investments coming into the country, make products which are, of course, used for the domestic market, but also make products which are of good quality and can be exported.
Right.
Now, one of our biggest challenges in India, Sitij, is that our contribution to the global value chain is quite low. We are just at about hardly 2%.
Yeah.
Now, the government wants to increase this to 5%. So, to
Correct.
increase to 5% means we have to really expand our exports, increase the exports, not only in quantum terms, but also quality wise, as well as the range of products have to be increased. German technology can really help the Indian manufacturers to have high quality products, for which becomes for them also easier to export. And how VDMA is helping in that, Kshitij, is so as VDMA India, being an industrial association, we keep on conducting a lot of technology related seminars.
Right.
The aim of these seminars is to connect our members with their customers or with the user industry. And I would also like to highlight one aspect, I think, where we are really able to help our members as well as get the connect with the local industry is that we keep on every year we do at least two events in tier 2, tier 3 cities.
Right.
So every year we are going to smaller towns. The members have also been very proactively supporting this. We get about 8 to 10 German companies with us coming to these smaller towns. Well, last year we did an event in Rudrapur. We've done earlier events in Jamshedpur. We've done in, but this year we are doing an event in Baddi. We are going to do an event in Kolhapur. So the biggest advantage here is that the local industry in these smaller or tier 2, tier 3 cities also get a chance to see what are the new technological developments that are happening. And this will really help them to hone their skill as well as enhance their product quality. So this is how, as VDMA, we are trying to be a bridgehead between the German and the Indian industry.
When you spoke about Make in India for the world, right? And some of these initiatives, although it's a bold move to conceptualize something like this and leave it to mass adoption, I think administration has done their part by putting this vision on the map that, okay, India can
Absolutely.
actually aim for something like this. Why don't you make in India? and not just for domestic consumption, but for the world. But I would also tie it back to what you said towards the end. I think Make in India for the world is is highly relevant when you look at the entire geographic spread, right? This should not and cannot be confined only to metros or traditional industrial hubs. We have to look at tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities
Absolutely.
because these are the ones which are actually driving innovation. These are the ones that
Great.
who see this opportunity for what it really is, right? Only when we are able to bring them in this ecosystem is when we are actually going to add value, and that 2% to 5%, the journey from 2% to 5%, although looks like two
Absolutely.
singular digits, it's a transformative journey, and we have to take everybody together in that journey. And I think what you said towards the end about doing these educational seminars and educating people on the technology side in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, that's very relevant. In fact, Mr. Nath, we are also seeing a huge shift in digitization, right? Every aspect of our life, from like manufacturing itself has seen, like when we talked about Industry 4.0, now we are talking about Industry 5.0. We went
Right.
from IoT to IIoT. Now we are talking about how AI will influence manufacturing, from generative AI to agentic AI. We are also
Right.
witnessing, the rise in digital ecosystems for industry
Right.
connections, right? In your view, how should manufacturers, whether MSMEs or large corporate, adapt this digital shift in networking? How do you think this is going to pan out?
Especially in Indian context, this is very relevant because, see, so that if you look at the Indian MSME structure, we say we have almost about 63 million MSMEs in India, and 99% of these MSMEs employ less than 10 people.
Correct.
So we are talking about small organization, many times maybe one or two people run organizations. So the biggest challenge here is, Kshitij, with this characteristic, how do you implement automation? How do you implement Industry 4.0?
Correct.
And that is where we have been also trying to educate or promote this idea that, of course, for bigger companies, Industry 4.0 is very relevant, but it has equal significance for smaller and mid-sized companies. The biggest advantage here is that you're collecting real-time data. Unlike earlier, when perhaps you have collected for the week and on Monday mornings the supervisor would show the data of the week. Till that time, actually, the machine would already have broken down or they would already have stopped working. Now, through Industry 4.0, through automation, we are collecting real-time data. We are able to analyze this real-time data, and one can take remedial action through predictive maintenance or preventive maintenance. So, in that way, before, for example, if in a machine temperature suddenly rises, you know that the bearing temperatures are rising, so the bearing will break down and the machine will ultimately break down. But
Yeah.
before it reaches the critical point, you can take remedial action. You can stop the machine and replace the bearing because the breakage disturbance or disruption would be much higher, and
Yeah.
you can undertake. And that is what we have been trying to bring this message across, that it is actually the smaller companies who suffer more when there is a breakdown of the
Yeah.
machine. And if they
Yeah.
can prevent this breakdown of the machine through predictive maintenance, through real-time data, actually they gain a lot more because the bigger companies, as it is, have deep pockets. So
Right.
if a day or two the machine breaks down, they can
They
sustain
can
it. But for
survive.
a
Yeah.
small enterprise, a few hours of stoppage will also impact
Catastrophic.
his revenue. I think our idea has been always to propagate this concept that it has to be a step-by-step evolution for the companies.
Right.
It's Industry 4.0 is not like a black box that you just get the black box and put it in your this thing. Now, each company has to identify what are the steps they can automate, and they have to look at, see, return of investment becomes very important. So
Right.
ultimately, they have to look at low-hanging fruits. What are
Right.
the steps where at a nominal cost you can automate and get a higher return of investment? That's why I personally always say that Industry 4.0, it's not a destination, it's a
Correct.
journey.
Correct.
You have to take this journey step by step towards a certain goal. And this journey cannot be the same. For each company, this journey would be different
Different.
depending on their specific requirement. And that is where the companies need to understand that and try to, I think, propagate or try to implement this level of automation as per their individual requirement.
I think that's a very relevant take on Industry 4.0 adoption. I think more often than not, people perceive it as something that they have to achieve.
Yeah,
I think the goal is something else. The goal is how can we be more sustainable? How can we be more productive? How can
absolutely.
we save cost? How can we produce better? And Industry 4.0 is sort of a means to an end. And that
Absolutely.
with that mindset is when people will be able to adopt Industry 4.0 seamlessly. Mr. Nath, I'm curious, right? In your years of experience, like you said, you've been with VDMA for 26 years and you connected with this industry for a while. Do you have any examples where this kind of synergy, especially the Indian-German collaboration in the context of sustainability, Industry 4.0, IoT, this has accelerated, green manufacturing or digital transformation? I think we are at a point where these have ceased to be buzzwords and are actually transformative experiences that people are going through. And we are seeing manufacturers going green. We have seen digital transformation for real. We'd love to know from you if you can cite a couple of examples that you remember or recall.
Absolutely. I think this is so correct what you say, Sritej. The focus also from the German companies who are operating in India. In fact, as a country, we want to achieve a zero emission status by 2070. And for that, now it's important that we start undertaking the steps towards zero emission or green manufacturing. And so, for example, now most of the companies who have manufacturing units in India, Kshitij, we find more and more now coming up with the solar cells on the rooftop. So
Right,
in fact, there are cases we have almost 80% of the energy requirement they are able to generate themselves through these solar cells or solar modules what they have. And then others remaining, either they are buying some renewable energy from open sources, either wind energy or solar energy. So that way, in that sense, they're becoming totally energy neutral in that sense, or green towards green manufacturing.
right,
Beyond that, even in fact, as VDMA, we have these manufacturing excellence award, Sitej, which we do every year. And here, one of the categories is also energy efficiency. And
right,
it's amazing to see how companies are really taking steps. Even in the process, they look at steps where they can optimize the process so that energy consumption is lower, sustainability, less water utilization is there, less waste is produced. And even if waste is produced, how do you recycle it? How can it be without affecting the environment? Circular economy is another very strong point that the companies are looking at. Sitij, how can you reduce the packaging? How
right.
can you do packaging with environment friendly or with materials that are easier to recycle? So I think there are a lot of such examples where the companies are really putting in a lot of thought process to it to become more sustainable and also move towards this green energy or green manufacturing concept, Kshitij.
And these are good times because we are witnessing, uh, the whole evolution of this concept to prototype to actual practice, right? From business schools where these concepts are being understood to industry where they are being talked about. And now we are witnessing adoption of some of these initiatives to become more carbon neutral, to become more sustainable.
Right,
I think there's a lot to do. Like you said,
right,
we have a goal of going carbon neutral, and there is a long way to go. But as long as there is conscious effort, and as long as everybody, all the stakeholders in this ecosystem, do their bit to come together and either impart
absolutely,
wisdom or knowledge or access to experts or share information or guide people on how to set this up, I think the future could be positive if we head in the right
absolutely.
direction. Since we were talking about specific industries, Mr. Nath, let me ask you another important question, which we'd love to hear from you. Germany is, if I'm not mistaken, again the ninth largest FDI, foreign direct investor, in India's manufacturing sector specifically, right? Which industries do you see as the most promising for Indo-German investments and collaboration in the future, and why?
So, Sidhij, I think I'll divide this into two aspects. One is some of the traditional industry, and the second part I would like to highlight some of the upcoming or new technologies that have developed. So, if you
Right,
look at the traditional industries, Sidhij, certainly with India's focus on infrastructure, we have a lot of German companies, especially in the machinery sector for infrastructure, like road making for concrete pumps. And here we've seen a lot of German investments coming in, some lovely factories, very state-of-art technology factories we have of German companies in
right,
this sector. Going broader to the core sectors, then steel and metallurgy sectors. So here is another, again, a sector where Germany has been very, very strong. We have some of the world's largest German or global companies who are German have a presence in India and are providing technology for our steel industry also.
right.
And this becomes very important because again, what you mentioned earlier, when we are talking about green manufacturing, how do you manufacture steel using sustainable technology, reducing the impact to the environment, reducing the pollution impact. Same goes with mining, which is another, and India is among perhaps very few countries where still mining plays an important role, and
Yeah,
coal still, while the fossil fuel is one of the biggest energy drivers for us and
yeah,
would continue also going ahead. And here again, I think German companies are very progressive when we talk about mining technology, be it open cast or be it underground mining. With safety, underground mining safety becomes very crucial. So here the German companies have, some of the companies are the world renowned players in this field through underground mining. Then open cast mining, how do you work efficiently on the open cast mining? And also this concept is being promoted very strongly in Germany, what we call green mining. So
uh,
that is again a very strong concept which we are trying to bring across here. So moving from the traditional sectors to new upcoming sectors, Kshitij, I would say certainly what we have discussed earlier, energy, renewable energy, be it solar, be it wind energy. Here again, we have a lot of German companies who are active in this sector. In fact, we are also trying on the solar energy. We did a seminar this year in Gandhinagar, and we are also trying to get a delegation from Germany, perhaps at the end of this year or next year to come to India. Then medical technology. Now, this is given a lot of focus has come from the government also, and here we have, in fact, conducted two seminars in the last 2 years. This year, we got a delegation from Germany also in the medical technology field, where they also visited some of the Indian companies, and it was a very successful delegation visit.
right,
And they could also connect with the Indian companies, also with the local industry, to look at possible collaboration, cooperations with the local industry. Then green hydrogen, Kshitij. Now, India has huge plans for green
right,
hydrogen. The aim of the government or the target of the government was 5 million tons. We want to produce green hydrogen in the country. Now, here again, we have companies, German companies with technology in this field also. And I think as these projects take off, German companies would play an important role in providing technology in this field. So I think it's a good combination we have of some very traditional industries, or as we
right,
say, the core industries, and the new upcoming industry. And we've seen actually also a big increase in export of German machinery in the sector of food processing and packaging.
right.
This is a upcoming sector in India, and
Yeah,
as we are seeing now more and more this quick commerce coming into play. So you need products which are well packed, which have hygiene packing. That is very important that these
right,
are
right,
have the hygiene packaging. And here we have, in the last few years, we have seen a big increase in the German exports of food processing and packaging machinery. And again, as VDMA, we ourselves are planning to do a seminar in this field in the probably around October, November. We are planning a seminar on this field. So I think these are the sectors where we are seeing a lot of advancement from the German side. also good technology coming from Germany to India. And I'm sure as we go ahead, maybe a few more sectors would also come into play. We have also sectors like automation, robotics, which have a broad application, be it traditional industry or the new industries. So this is one of the sectors where we have been very active. We ourselves do a technology related seminar called Robotomation,
Uh-huh.
which is robotics and automation for manufacturing industry.
Right.
And this has been growing year on year. And we have done this seminar in various cities within India, and
Right.
I've got a very good encouraging response also from the Indian industry, Siddesh.
Right. That's actually quite interesting and exhaustive. I think you spoke about traditional industries and you spoke about upcoming industries and you're also open to the possibility of some of newer technologies opening up doors. I think that's a great take on how you see investments and collaboration from both sides, especially in the Indian manufacturing landscape. That's very enlightening to hear. I'm mindful of the time that we have blocked with you, but I won't let you go before I get your views on something, right? So while we touched upon this slightly earlier in our discussion, I would want to build on this a little more and get your views on this. So what we've also realized that over a period of time, with the advent of technology, discovery, conversations, collaborations, a lot of this continued to be offline in this industry. So at Ideas Meet, in fact, we are working to transform how manufacturers, and when we say manufacturers, we are using the term colloquially to include service providers, dealers, distributors, everybody who's connected with the manufacturing landscape, how they can get access to experts such as yourselves. How can they do more business? How can they find suppliers? How can we try and have some of these conversations throughout the year, 24/7, right? What we are trying to build is sort of a supplementary layer to trade shows and industrial fairs where people go with the hope of meeting and sparking some of these conversations which lead to eventual sale, right? We spoke a lot about technology and collaboration so far, but this is more towards front end of things where ultimately it boils down to, okay, how many customers am I able to serve? How many clients am I able to generate? How many leads am I able to build out, right? How my lead funnel looks like. We are at Ideas Meet tasking ourselves with the mission of building a digital network for manufacturers because trade shows and industrial fairs are great, but the frequency is not ideal for an MSME, right? Or not everybody has the resources to actually go and attend some of these shows. Even the ones that do, especially your target audience, I think what we are trying to do is probably broaden the funnel for them. Instead of having 50 conversations at their fair, what if they were to have 200 conversations? That's the kind of a networking layer we are trying to build by using technology. What are your thoughts on this?
I think a very important point you have touched upon, Kshitij, and also from my side, compliments to you and the team for the good work you all are doing, trying to get the industry closer together, forming this network platform for the industry, especially when we look at the scenario post-COVID.
Yeah.
In fact, the whole working style has changed. Manufacturing always was a very traditional, conservative industry.
Right.
And now, even in manufacturing, we are seeing this remote working concept coming into play.
Right.
So I think the whole workspace concept has changed after the pandemic. I think this is where also virtual platforms play such an important role. Of course, the traditional exhibitions will always continue to be there,
Right.
where you have the in-person contact.
True.
But then it's not every time possible for people to visit an exhibition because
Right.
it incurs a lot of cost, also travel cost,
True.
travel time. And I think virtual platforms where you are connecting with suppliers, with dealers, with vendors, this becomes very important because, of course, this saves a lot of time, it saves a lot of cost because you don't have to move physically from one point to the other point. And it is also a very effective way of communications because you fix a time, you have the communication, you're not delayed with the traffic, especially I stay in Bangalore where traffic plays a very important role. We
Right.
don't talk about kilometers, we talk about how much time you
Right.
take, more relevant rather than the kilometers. So I think if we were to have the same conversation in person in Bangalore, I would have perhaps taken 1 to 2 hours to reach you and then 1 to 2 hours to come back. So the
True.
whole thing would have taken 5 hours. And now we are having that virtually. So it's saving time for both of us. So
Right.
I think this is very, very important, Kshitij. And I'm sure this concept of the virtual platform will continue because it will. And also, I think it's very important because, as we discussed earlier, India's growth story will be incomplete unless and until we can integrate the rural India also, the smaller towns. Of course, the bigger towns are growing, but what for a holistic growth of India, we need that our smaller towns also grow. People in manufacturers in these smaller towns also have the possibility to be a part of the larger manufacturing
Yeah.
ecosystem. And I think this is very much complemented by the government, where we have new airports coming up. We have almost, in fact, we have doubled the number of airports in the last decade.
Right.
If you look at 10 years back, we were 74 airports. Now we have 152 airports, and the government has plans to increase this to 200 airports. So there is a lot of effort from the government going into smaller towns also getting integrated or connected with the larger cities. And this will along with that side, I think this is very important that through these virtual platforms, the people or manufacturers or suppliers in smaller town also have the possibility to connect with the suppliers all over India. This is where I think the platforms, virtual platforms like Ideas Change will also really help in connecting the industry, connecting the suppliers with their customers. This is very important for India so that our manufacturing ecosystem, the suppliers ecosystem, spreads across India, is not confined to a few clusters only. Cities like, for example, Pune or Bangalore.
Right.
Now, getting land is becoming very difficult in these
Correct.
bigger towns.
Correct.
So the development will have to happen in the smaller cities in India. And I think such platforms will really give the possibility to connect and be part of the larger manufacturing ecosystem, which will help to drive our country forward.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nath. I think I couldn't have articulated it better. That's precisely the mission
Thank you. Thank
on
you.
trying to do our bit to integrate all MSMEs into the mainstream ecosystem because the actual growth that all of us are envisioning is not going to be possible unless everybody is included. And we're trying
Correct.
to bring in technology to sort of up the ante on networking and try and help build some of those capabilities. Mr. Nath, on that note, while we would have loved to continue to chat with you, possibly we'll do a part two of this soon.
Sure.
Because it was indeed an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Your insights on the whole Indo-German collaboration corridor, VDMA efforts, how you guys are trying to shape up the next wave of innovations across the German border into India, how technology is poised for accelerated growth across both sides, how India has shaped up to be an important market from a German standpoint. I think some of these insights and knowledge that you've been able to impart would be very valuable to the viewers of this podcast today. And thank you so much for spending time and doing this for us, Mr. Nath.
Thank you. Thank you, Siddesh, for inviting me for this podcast. And I quite enjoyed our free flowing conversation. I think we've covered a lot of topics during this conversation.
Right.
And again, my compliments to you and the team, and wish you a lot of success in trying to get the SMEs, MSMEs, SMEs also connected with the main ecosystem. So continue the good work you and the team are doing, Siddesh.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nath. Thank you.
Thank you.